Have you ever heard of Disney? Oh really? Okay, so take the 2D Disney style from the 1900s, turn it into an interactive game, make it hard as balls, then make it seal your wallet, and then you've got the Dragon's Lair trilogy. The Dragon's Lair trilogy consists of 3 games, Dragon's Lair, Space Ace, and Dragon's Lair 2, made from 1983 to 1991. The games were all created by Don Bluth, an ex-Disney employee who is also known for making famous movies like An American Tail and All Dogs Go to Heaven. Bluth left Disney in 1979 as he didn't like how the company was run, and he began his own company that created the movie The Secret of NIMH. In 1981, he started the Bluth Group with game designer Rick Dyer and fellow ex-Disney members Gary Goldman and John Pomeroy, and began production on an arcade game called Dragon's Lair. The game's aim was for the player to be able to control the movie. The game, released in 1983, was revolutionary, but it was well known for being a very difficult quarter sucker. This reputation has lasted to even today, with it even appearing in Stranger Things 2. This reputation definitely impacted my view of the game as soon as I got it, as I was kinda nervous to play it because of it. By the way, my friend Elias got me these games in exchange for making a video on it, so shoutouts to Elias. This game has been ported to more consoles than there are atoms in the observable universe and beyond, but I got the game for Steam. Before getting the game, I was actually kinda nervous about playing the game because of what I heard about the difficulty. When I downloaded the game, it was downloading at 14.6 kilobytes per second. At this rate, I'll be dead in 100 years. Do the Wi-Fi gods want me to not play this game or something, or do they just want to drag out my dread for a few more decades? Eventually the game downloaded and I could play the game. Upon opening, the game had a decent enough menu with play game, extras, achievements, high scores, and exit options. The game gives you an assortment of options for how you want to play the game. I wanted to make it as close to the original Laserdisc version as possible, so I made it on hard mode, turned off the move guide that tells you what to do, and I turned on the move beeps that tells you whether or not you made the right move. I also kept a counter of how many times I got a game over to see how much money I would have spent in the arcade. Then, I started the game. You play as the main protagonist trying to save the princess from the evil dragon. Nope, wrong game. There we go. This game actually came out 2 years before Super Mario Bros, so if anyone's copying, it's Mario. Either way, the plot is very unoriginal and boring, and the game would be much more interesting if they did something other than a damsel in distress story. The gameplay consists of either you clicking up, down, left, or right on the joystick, or the attack button at specific points to allow Dirk to progress to the next section. On my first playthrough, this is what it looked like. Yeah, I had no idea what I was doing. I actually originally played the arcade version, but that put you in a random room every time you died, and I'm assuming that's because they don't want you to easily learn each area so they can make more money off of you, so I just switched it to the Laserdisc version. My first impression of the game was... The game gives little to no indication of which direction you should press the button, so it makes absolutely no sense. So you pretty much just end up guessing on every single timing. This is where it becomes obvious that the game was a coin sucker in arcades. It's so easy to die over and over again and just lose your entire 50 cents of lives on the same one timing. One example is this spiral staircase room. You go up this staircase, kill this guy, and then press up, but the game gives no indication to go up without the move indicator. So then it plays this animation where you kill this guy and then these guys kill you. So at this part you're already screwed and are set up for failure. But silly me didn't know that, and it took me 22 minus 9 minutes to figure that out, and I lost a crap ton of lives on it. The live system doesn't even make sense at all. I understand that the live system was part of the arcade experience, but that doesn't mean I have to like it on my computer. It just doesn't serve any purpose besides being an annoying extra 10-second death scene after every 5 times you die. Despite all these things that haven't aged so well, one thing that has aged well is the visuals. The animation is absolutely amazing throughout the whole game. The best part about these games is easily the animation, and it never got old throughout the entirety of the game. The last scene is extremely visually appealing, but it has an extremely major flaw. It is way too long. From the beginning until when you kill the dragon is almost a minute and 20 seconds. So every time you die near the end, you have to wait a whole minute just so you can try to figure out that timing again. The ending scene took me a whole hour because of that. All of this for some stupid princess. The princess is actually an idiot.
Please save me! The cage is locked with a key. The dragon keeps it around his neck.
Oh no, I'm about to die. This situation is so dire. Seriously, the voice actor is so bad. Who was in the studio and was like, yep, this passes. I'm not saying you need an Oscar-winning performance, but this is just so bad. Anyway, by the time I saved the princess, I got game over 93 times, which is $46.5 and $125.7 adjusted for inflation. So it not only cost me my dignity, but also my left kidney. This is nowhere near a $125 game, so let's just say I'm glad I'm not playing it in the arcade. The game was really satisfying to beat, and I actually genuinely enjoyed the game. Plus, I can go back and achievement hunt it now that I know all the timings. I can see why there was so much hype for the game, as the visuals are amazing, but I can see why the difficulty made people turned off by the idea of another game like this. The next installment in the Dragon's Lair trilogy was Space Ace. Space Ace was revealed only 4 months after the release of Dragon's Lair, and it was released in late April of 1984, not even a year after the release of Dragon's Lair. Some people were getting sick of Dragon's Lair because of the grueling gameplay, and other people were expecting a sequel to Dragon's Lair, so it was a really confusing move to a lot of people, and there was a lack of hype for the game. In an attempt to raise the hype for Space Ace, they made a show for it that only lasted 1 season, and it sadly failed in garnering hype for the game. In the game, you play as Ace, who gets shot by a baby ray by the villain named Borf, and he becomes a kid, and then his girlfriend gets taken away by Borf, and then Ace has to get her back. Yep, you guessed it, another damsel in distress story. I chose Ace difficulty, which allows you to see all the scenes of the games, rather than the easy choice, which apparently only has half the scenes in the game. This game was interesting because some of the scenes gave you a choice to become an adult again, but you didn't have to if you didn't want to, so the scenes are a little different depending on which choice you choose. The first thing I noticed about the game is that there's way more indication about which way to go, which is really nice for making the game not be horribly awful. Every time you die, Mr. Genie from Aladdin Borf guy taunts you. It's so irritating! One thing about this game is just how annoying it is. The sounds are just so obnoxious, and some of them don't even fit the game. Why are they so happy? Also this.
Totally cosmic.
Who says this before they die? Any last words?
Totally cosmic.
One interesting choice about this game over Dragon's Lair is that it has longer stages. Rather than just rooms, it has a lot longer stages, and I think it makes the gameplay a lot more satisfying to beat. And the stages aren't too long either. I think the length was actually a pretty perfect length. It wasn't too long, it wasn't too short. One strange thing about this trilogy is the mirrored gameplay. I played the game until the end, and then I had to go for a little bit. When I came back to my save data, for some reason the move guide was on, so I had to restart the game to restart my settings. So when I started the new game, for some reason the game was mirrored from the original playthrough, so I had to rememorize the entire game to get back to the end of the game. What is even the point? Is this how they were trying to screw over gamers for money so they couldn't memorize the game as easily? It just seems weird to me. The game is already hard enough, but this is just too far in my opinion. So, getting back to that last scene was pretty painful.
The morph control.
That's what you're doing this for? Just go to your local space pharmacy. You shouldn't have to go on some stupid space pilgrimage to get some. Eventually, I actually got to play the final scene, and it was actually pretty fun. This game was also really satisfying to finish. The gameplay in Space Ace was actually better in my opinion than Dragon's Lair, but the game was just too annoying for me to enjoy it more than Dragon's Lair. But hey, at least we got Borf, baby! Yes, he turned into a baby! He turned into a baby! Yeah! This game cost me about half as much as Dragon's Lair did at $25 back then and $67.57 adjusted to inflation. So this game didn't cost me my kidney, maybe more like half my kidney. After the disappointment of how Space Ace performed, the Don Bluth group began work on the sequel to Dragon's Lair. All of a sudden, the arcade market crashed, which halted all plans of the game for years. Eventually, the game was made and released in 1991, and it was titled Dragon's Lair Time Warp. Wait, I actually want you to guess what the story is. It starts with a D. Yep, damsel in distress. This time, Princess Daphne is being taken by a wizard and you have to save her from being trapped in the eternal time warp. I was actually kind of excited for this game as the first game was actually not too bad and I wanted to see what they did with this one that was different than the first one. This time, they didn't have the option for easy or hard mode, which is personally preferable to me than having a choice between the two. As I started playing, I knew the gameplay would be faster. It was really difficult for me to fully appreciate the animation with how fast the game was going. You're mostly focusing on hitting the timings rather than looking at the amazingly done animation. For example, in this scene, you're doing a little play fight with these people in the castle, and this person is giving the impression that they're bigger than Dirk, but then he jumps in front of him and shows that he's actually bigger than the other guy. But when you're playing the game and when it's going like beep boop bop boop beep beep, it's hard to fully appreciate the animation. The levels are also much longer than either of the first two games. Initially, I thought the game actually just sent you back to the beginning of the game on every game over because I was so used to there just being shorter rooms on the first two games, so I was pretty pissed at first. They also chose to get rid of the scoreboard, which I'm not going to complain about because it did literally nothing at all, so that's pretty interesting that they were conscious of that and got it removed. The gameplay is certainly better in this game, but it definitely has its issues. One issue is with the blinking system. Usually the indicators for where to go next blink right before the timing, so you can get ready for the jump. But the main issue with that is that sometimes when you press the button while it's blinking, it registers as incorrect because you're pressing it too early. So you eventually don't even trust the timings and just end up spamming the upcoming timing instead of waiting for the blinking light.
Hang on, brother, don't eat him.
Another thing that's annoying to me is the mirrored gameplay. The exact same thing that happened to me in Space Ace happened to me in this game. I seriously don't know why, it doesn't make the gameplay more interesting at all. This baby part took me a super long time because of how long it was, which really got me annoyed as I was just kinda spamming the whole time. I finally beat it, and the part after was a part with Beethoven, and man, after that, let me just tell you, I've never been so happy to see Beethoven. The actual Beethoven part of the game was so good. The way they used music during this part just made it feel so epic and awesome to play. This section took me quite a while to beat, but I enjoyed every second of it. But something extremely annoying about this game was the trophy system. Basically, in each section there's at least one trophy that you can collect instead of doing a move the way that it's intended to be played. The game passes this off as an optional thing, as you get achievements for collecting some of them, so I thought it was just an extra thing. So this is what happened when I got to the last level. No! So I had to go back and replay the entire game just to get the trophies back that I needed. Thankfully, I knew where the hardest trophy was because I collected it earlier by complete accident, but I didn't get it on the winning attempt during Beethoven. But if I didn't get it by accident, I most certainly would have had to look up the location of the butterfly trophy. I think they should have made it so the game just took you to the parts where you didn't get the trophies so you didn't have to replay sections that you got all the trophies for. The ending to the game was pretty fun and wasn't too difficult. The main issue for the game in my opinion was how the length of the stages made it really difficult to get better near the end of the stages because you had to wait a super long time just to get to the part that you were at before. So the length had its upsides and its downsides. Its upside was that it created for more powerful and musical scenes like the Beethoven section, so I definitely think that the length was more of a good thing than a bad thing. It was easily the best game in the trilogy despite its weaknesses. Because of how long it took me, this one cost me $27.5 long dollars, which is $44.5 adjusted to inflation. So I guess this one cost me my long kidney. Overall, I really enjoyed these games. The live system could have been better and maybe the gameplay should have been tweaked up a bit, but the satisfaction of beating the game and seeing the amazing animation was definitely worth getting through the bad parts. The gameplay got better as the games went on in my opinion. I rank the games as number 1 being Dragon's Lair 2, number 2 being Dragon's Lair 1, and Space Ace at number 3. Again, Space Ace had better gameplay, but it was just too annoying for me personally to put it ahead of Dragon's Lair. I appreciate that they put more indication of where to go in the last two games, but I think that the blinker system could have been a bit better. I also wish they did something more interesting with the plots. They could have easily done something new with Space Ace and Dragon's Lair 2, but they just didn't. The main takeaway from these games are easily the absolutely beautiful animations. Man, it's good Don Bluth and his squad left Disney because I think it was worth it for getting these games. Though I do understand why these games decrease in popularity. It would be really frustrating in arcades to just blow all of your money on one stage that you can't figure out, so it makes sense that people got less hyped. Couple that with the crash of the arcade market, it really just wasn't the best time for the Dragon's Lair trilogy to be coming out. But as a computer game, I really liked it. I definitely wouldn't spend nearly $200 in both of my kidneys to play this game though. If I had that much money, instead of continuing to play this game, I'd sue Don Bluth for theft. That's a joke, of course. Honestly, I definitely think that the $0 I spent on this game was worth it. Again, thanks Elias. All jokes aside, I would definitely recommend this game to people when the game is on sale, but I don't think it's worth getting the game for $10. Man, that was a long video, so I'll see you guys in the next video next week.